Oh, good morning, Kristen.
Good morning. How's everybody?
Good, good.
Good.
Oh man, we got lots of noise here. Please mute. All right, I had to mute everybody. You can unmute yourselves one by one, but whatever you got going there for noise, it's pretty bad.
Good morning, Kristen. This is Thomas Kramer, WA6NYP.
Great, thank you, welcome. Hey, everybody, if you can, if you know how to, please stick your call sign in your name so I know who you are, so we don't have randoms. I can pick out the randoms more easily.
How do you put that on your video?
I think, let's see, does anybody remember how to do that?
Click on the
dot,
three
dot,
dots
dot.
on your picture and click on rename.
There you go, yes.
Good morning.
And if you've got significant noise, be sure to, use the mute function. Mute function is your friend.
Good morning. This is Dave, Kilo 6, Mike Victor Juliet. This is my first time. I'm president of Elk Grove, Florida.
All right, thanks, Dave.
You're welcome.
Looking for my notes here. There we go.
I'll go ahead and log in too while I'm here. KE6SLSJ in Eureka, ! California. Joining just to welcome you aboard.
Well, thank you so much.
Morning, Kristen, N7ZEV from Las Vegas, Nevada.
All right, great.
Good morning, Kristen. This is Diana, KJ7GVY from Carson City, Nevada. And thank you for sending me the link last night.
Oh, yes, that's right. I got your email.
Thank you very much. That was great.
Excellent.
This is
John, APP.
Good morning, Kristen. ASM Santa Clara Valley.
Okay, you're super weird noise going on there.
Okay, I have no idea what's happening.
Okay.
On here whatsoever. Okay, that's my whole computer.
Okay, I'm gonna mute you because we can't hear anything.
KJ6DZB Matheson from West Berkeley in the East Bay area section. And he might just want to try turning down his gain setting for the microphone.
Yeah, something's...
or turning off one of the automatic gain settings. Blowing it up.
Certainly not happy. Thanks, Matheson. See, lots of people coming in just...
Morning.
Go ahead.
This is Whiskey Zulu 6 Tango and East Bay section, David Power. Welcome.
Thank you, David.
And good morning from W6RGG.
Hey, Bob. Great to have you here.
Hi, Bob.
Simon, KB6CLV from the mountain area, San Joaquin Valley.
Great. Welcome.
Paul here, A2HZO from Ukiah. And why can't we see the moderator?
You can't?
Well, I can see her.
I have video.
Yeah, I see
Video's on.
I see the moderator.
Yourself in gallery mode.
Yeah, he couldn't see Bob.
6GU, 12 County EC for Aries.
All right.
K6B, Tim in Pittsburgh, just a
Hey,
life,
Tim.
just a life member.
Haven't seen you in a long time.
It has been.
270, Chris from Las Vegas, PIO Nevada section.
All right. Thank you. Welcome.
Jim.
KB0. Oh,
Go ahead, Brian.
KB0A, Brian in Fairfield.
Jim, K6EST, Chico.
Mark, W6MW, Las Vegas.
And 6BOW, Reading.
Kilo Golf 6 Charlie Foxtrot Charlie in Hawaii.
And Bob, K6RMW from Monterey Bay Area, Fremont Peak Repeater Association.
All right.
And
Gary, KI60YW, Fresno.
And Whiskey Bravo 6 November Echo Romeo Orca in Oakland, California.
WB6 MVT Petaluma, California. Hi, David.
How you doing?
Fine.
That's great.
Bob, W6RBF from Benicia.
Jamie, KI6MPG, Sacramento.
Frank, AF0XX from Hayward. Hi, y'all.
Hey, Uncle Frank.
Tim, K7 JTC, Nevada.
And Kilo 6 Charlie, Redwood City.
Dan?
Kilo 6 Bravo Papa Berkeley.
Yeah.
AI6 Baker Paul in Pacifica.
AG7 CRV Randy, Boulder City, Nevada.
N6TNQ Half Moon Bay.
Whiskey 6 Lima Julia Bravo La Honda, just south of Half Moon Bay.
Whiskey Hotel 6 Fox Alpha Mike, Maui, Hawaii.
K6SOE, Pittsburgh, good morning.
Whiskey 6 Tango Sierra Tango, San Bernardino County.
Kilo Foxtrot 6 Romeo Foxtrot Quebec, North Fair Oaks, sandwiched in between Menlo Park and Atherton.
November 6th, Hotel Kilo Tango, Heatherly, San Benito County.
AI6HIG, Gary from Redwood City.
Whiskey 6 Uniform Sierra in Sparks, Nevada.
Kilo 6.
Go ahead, Kilo 6.
Kilo 6 November Charlie X-Ray, Alameda.
And Alpha 7 Hotel Victor, Las Vegas, Nevada.
W6NEV Marty Wayne, Sunnyvale, California.
87 NXC, Smith Valley, Nevada, Nevada SEC.
KH7 RMG in Kona, Hawaii.
Kilo 6.
KI6LNB Larry in Concord.
K6CEL Bennett in Yuba City.
Kilo India 6 Lima Delta Mike Daryl Cupertino.
KM6ASI Milt, Marin County.
AD0YKO Bakersfield.
Wow.
6 Silicon Valley, Jim, Menlo Park.
Kilo Mike 6, Mike Fox,
Jim.
India, and Carmichael.
W7JKV Harry, EC, Elko County, Nevada.
AM6DXY, Tehachapi, California.
KF6GAG AEC Ladson County.
KK6 IPR Fremont, California.
KI6WPK San Francisco.
Kilo 1 Fox Mike Bravo, Frank, Roseville.
KN6KOO Dave in San Bruno.
N6QX John, Santa Cruz.
Kilo 7 Whiskey Bravo Yankee Steve in Fernley, Nevada. That's line 10.
Whiskey
Alpha Alpha 6 Charlie Sierra Christopher Carmichael.
Whiskey 6 Delta Quebec, Dennis in Inyokern with
KF6QNG, Lisa.
Whiskey Bravo 7, Whiskey Bravo Bravo, David.
Kilo Mike 6 Zulu November X-ray, Tanasi in Berkeley.
KJ6 OCL Carl in Hayfork, California.
Kilo 6 Whiskey Reading.
Dave, WA6UHA, San Francisco.
John, W6JCP, AS7
KB6 USJ, Mike Copperopolis.
Good morning. Good morning. This is Joel Baldwin, AI6DG from Sacramento, North Hills Radio Club.
NJ6W, Bernie, Livermore.
KA9MDP, Sutter Creek, California.
Kilo 6 Kilo Mike, Roberto in Livermore.
The person doing the typing should mute his microphone.
Thank you.
Or hers.
Kilo 6 Sugar Tango, Barry, Reno, Nevada, the ARRL Youth Coordinator.
NDKR6DD, am I getting through? Yep.
KJ6 PTX Richard in San Francisco.
Kilo 6 Mike Lima Foxtrot, Michael in Mill Valley.
Wendy KN6 DON, Santa Rosa, California.
I'll be back before they get done.
Yeah, really.
Whiskey Hotel 6 Golf Alpha Julie.
November. 6. Everybody, please mute their microphone unless they're talking.
Whiskey Hotel 6 Golf Alpha Juliet, Ernie in Honolulu, Hawaii.
Alpha Foxtrot 6, Mike November, David in Reno, Nevada.
Kilo Hotel 7, Hotel Oscar, Pacific Section Emergency Coordinator. Marcel, Kilo 6, India Hotel Victor in San Jose, California. Kilo Papa 4, Mike Delta, Sacramento Valley Section Manager.
Ron.
6, Delta Oscar Zulu, Chris in Aptos.
KK6 ISP Clark in Redwood City.
Kilo Mike 6, Zulu November Zulu, Steve in City of Alameda.
86 Lima Hotel, Leroy in Newark.
This is Whiskey Lima 7, Charlie Oscar Oscar, Dan, 4 miles southwest of Mariposa.
Okay. Still a few people joining here. We're up to 217 participants. Good thing I bought that 500-seat license, huh?
Good morning, Kristen.
Good morning.
Morning, Kristen.
Morning, Kristen.
Yeah,
KA6W Auburn, California.
Okay, Ted. Is there anybody else before we get rolling here?
Hi, Kristen. Good morning. It's Don, AA6W, San Juan Bautista, California.
Ron, KE6RS Pinole, California.
I haven't had a chance to get in.
Joe, W6SNV, Saratoga, California.
This is Todd, KM6HFU in Hercules, California.
This is Brian, K0DTJ in Half Moon Bay, California.
This is Bill, KH6GJV, San Francisco Section Manager. Good morning, everybody. What a great bunch of faces. I love it.
Whiskey
Yeah.
6 Kilo, East Bay Section Manager.
This is Lee Copeland, AJ6 Bravo November, Half Moon Bay.
Tom, Kilo Foxtrot 6, Tango Alpha Golf, AEC, Lassen County.
Harvey, KM6YFD, Fresno, California.
Jesse, WH6AV, Maui, Hawaii.
Warren, K6WRL, Mill Valley, California.
Gary, K6PDL, Santa Cruz.
Alan, AD6A, Maui, Hawaii.
Peter, Whiskey 6 Delta Echo India, Berkeley. Really tough to break this pile up.
Robert,
But we're hams, right?
Robert, KA5 WSS, Sonoma.
We've got 200 and some members. It's going to take all morning, Kristen.
Yeah, well, it's slowing down, so we're almost done.
Jane, KB7 YUZ, Las Vegas, Nevada.
Peter, KN6KXL, Danville, California.
Peter, WA6VAQ, Brentwood, California.
You can always ID on the chat if you can't break in.
KG6SJT, Davis, California.
And the tail ender usually gets the QSO. John N7UR, Nevada Section Manager, Winchester, Nevada.
Kevin, A86QO, Honolulu.
And JKE7EGO, DEC, Nevada Southern District.
All right, sounds like we got most people. Why don't we get started? And I'd like to welcome everybody here and thank you so much for coming along. We have 227 people at the moment, which is amazing. And a lot more than we usually get into that city council chamber over in Livermore, right? So I hope you all like this, doing the format like this. Is this working for everybody?
Yeah.
Thumbs up. Yeah, cool. Because it allows us to, you know, the division is big. It includes all of Northern California and Nevada and Hawaii. And I don't think we get together much. And I would like to have more opportunities like this to hear from you and for you to hear from me. So I'd like to do this a couple times a year, at least aligned with the ARRL board meetings so that we get a chance to talk and I get to hear what you guys are up to and get a chance to give you what information I might have. So let's start out by recognizing silent keys. I know that we have a big one, which is K6JT Jim Teamstra, who was the division director. And, you know, it's kind of an unfortunate circumstance that I'm here because of that. I'll try to live up to Jim's role and do everything I can to help you with the league and help the league with trying to make its future a bright one. So I want to offer his name and also we lost our Santa Clara Valley section manager, AA6 FC Bill, very recently, and we lost the San Joaquin Valley section manager as well. Does anybody else have silent keys that you want to acknowledge? Just give a call sign and a name, please.
Alpha 6 Sierra Foxtrot, Peter McElmurray.
Up here in Santa Rosa, we lost Ronald Gove, AF6MO.
Here in Sonoma, we lost K6UUW, Jim Hill.
In Albuquerque, we lost Jim Cook, NH6YH.
Here in Indian Wells Valley, we lost Chuck Sweetbloom, WA6EXV, who was a pioneer microwave ham. And we sadly lost him just a few weeks ago.
And out of Europe, we lost ON4UN, who that many people know. He had wrote a lot of books. And on 160 DXing, great guy.
In South County, Sonoma County, South County, in our ACS unit, we lost 4 members. KD6LYU, Mike, KG6BZH, David, W6WR, Jim, and KI6B, Bob.
In East Bay section, we lost Jay Colt as KT6Y. Good Elmer to me.
And in Nevada, we lost Steve DeLeo, NK2V. He was an early victim to COVID.
In San Joaquin Valley section, we lost W6RUF, Manny Sampanis, who was a fairly new amateur, but very active and useful and constructive in Aries. He earned everybody's respect right out of the chute, and we were all shocked. We don't think it was COVID related, but it was an unknown cardiac event, or it was a cardiac situation he wasn't aware of until it was too late. As well as Dan Pruitt, 86SX, as you mentioned, our former section manager.
In Bakersfield, we lost K6MAR, Mike Alpha Romeo. That was Dave Waterman, good friend and mentor.
Okay, let's have a moment of silence for all of our friends and colleagues whom we've lost. Thank you very much. I'd like to just go and acknowledge all the people that are on this call that are in various leadership roles, just so you know who they are. Some of you may not get a chance to meet them very often. So I think it's valuable for us to know who are the leaders here for the ARRL and other things. There's going to be a lot of them, so let's move very quickly. Anybody who's a member of the ARRL board in any fashion, just state your name and your role.
Rod, W6ROD, International Affairs Vice President for ARRL.
And that may be it, other than me. Oh, Bob, where's our GG, Bob?
Yeah, I tried to unmute myself, but I didn't have any success. Bob, W6RGG, Second Vice President. Good morning.
Thank you, Bob. And I think that's it then.
Are you standing up, Bob?
Always.
Hello, Bob.
Okay, and now for the section managers in the division.
This is Carol, KP for MD Sacramento Valley Section Manager.
Oh, good. Carol went first. This is Bill, KH6GJV in San Francisco section. Good morning, everybody.
Hello, this is Jim, W6LK in East Bay section. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everybody. This is John, N7UR, Nevada section.
Aloha from Hawaii, AH0A section manager, the Pacific section.
Ready? James Armstrong, ARRL Santa Clara Valley section. Sorry for the doubling.
I think that covers it. That was 6, right? Okay, and let's see. I'm sure we have a lot of field staff, ARRL field staff here. So if you have an ARRL badge.
Like Kristen, does the field staff include PIO?
Sure does.
Oh yeah, I'm ARRL PIO. Good morning, everybody. AA6W.
I am Matheson, KJ6DZB in the East Bay section, and I am a technical specialist. Mesh.
Kilo 6 Sugar Tango Barry in Reno, Nevada. I'm the ARRL Nevada section coordinator for Nevada, and we are very happy to help all the sections in the Pacific Division and beyond.
I am Sue Ellen Peterson. I'm K6 CPA and the PIC for Santa Clara Valley section.
AA7HV, Nevada PIC. Name is Kathy.
Glad to see you all this morning.
This is KB6USJ PIO for the Calaveras Amateur Radio Society in Calaveras.
NO7E, Chris, Nevada Section PIO.
And this is JKE7EGO, DEC for Nevada Southern District.
This is N7ZEV, Technical Coordinator for Nevada Section.
I swear to God, I do not spend the whole day, every day.
This is where I find her every time I come over.
Clearly.
Clearly,
I
there's
know.
there's an issue here.
I was out in the berry patch yesterday digging up some.
Okay, I muted Terry there.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Is anybody else?
It could be the best show yet.
I know. That
That's
could be a
back
happy
on.
time.
Kristen, John Litch is on his way in.
Okay. Okay, great.
87NHC, Nevada Section Emergency Coordinator.
WB7 WBB, David, Emergency Coordinator for Santa Clara Valley.
KJ6 OCL, Sacramento Valley DEC.
John, 36 JPP ASM, Santa Clara Valley.
Clam, KH7HO, Pacific Section Emergency Coordinator, Hawaii.
Okay, any more? All right, well, thank you all. You know, the one problem with these Zoom meetings is I can't have everybody clap, but I'd like y'all to think of clapping for all these great people who
but to the contrary, there is a clap feature if it's turned on the below the raised hand.
Okay, well, in any case, that's not quite the same. But thank you all for your hard work. You know, that's what makes ham radio what it is. I know we have a lot of club presidents and frequency coordinators on, but we've done a large round of introductions already. So just, you know, you can hold your badge up or whatever, just to let us know who you are. I wanted to get into next what I wrote on the agenda is the Amateur Radio State of the Union. And it's sort of an Apple tradition that they have the platform State of the Union at every developers conference. And I like that because it tells us where we're at. And there's a lot of stuff going on in ham radio and a lot of challenges we have ahead of us. We have a vibrant group that's here with us, 241 of us from the division, which is great. And a lot of people lighting up the bands, especially on a contest day. And that's wonderful to see. But we, as you can probably guess from what you see here, is we have a demographic problem. We have a lot of people who are getting older, as you see, and that's not keeping our hobby growing. We need to get people from the bottom, and getting youth into the hobby is something we talk about a lot, but I don't know how to do it. It's a very tough problem. I even had the same problem with my own son, who got his license when he was 11, and he's now, 27, and he is just not interested in ham radio at all, no matter how much I try. And I don't push him, but I try to get him involved. So we've got a real problem there. And I don't care if it's youth or people in their 30s. That seems to be another target demographic that we can work on. But we need to figure out how to get more people into our hobby so that it stays vibrant well into the future. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, you all know this, but ideas are always welcome. And we've we actually have a little bit of demographic information from the league about what kinds of people are interested in being ham radio operators these days. And the biggest group seems to come from off-roaders and people kind of in their 30s that are discovering emergency communications and those kinds of things. And that's a big sort of place to mine for new membership. And kids, it seems to be more of a one-off thing. You know, if they happen to show an interest, they show an interest, but it's not, it's a difficult place to try and find a lot of new hams. So I want you all to put your thinking caps on out there. I'd be happy to entertain suggestions if you email them to me, because I don't want to, you know, stop here and do all of the suggestions. We can talk about it a little bit during the Q&A perhaps, but that's one of our biggest challenges. We also have lots of other challenges. I think when it comes to emergency communications, we're beginning to be replaced by systems that are actually working well enough. And if we're not careful, that's always been our reason for existence, and that could become kind of a liability over time if we always focus there. So we have to keep that in mind as we go forward. The world has moved forward along with our communications stuff and created some technology that's robust enough, still not perfect by any means. You know, we had our fires here in California that basically cut the communications off within an hour. We've maybe seen a talk about that. I certainly have heard about that and saw a talk on the subject, but there's still a lot of places where they're just saying, well, it's nice to have you there, but you know, we've got it under control, and so we don't need you guys so much. And we've seen that with a few of the big disasters recently. So, you know, we have to maybe shift our focus a little bit, not take our focus off emergency communications at all, but try to think of how we justify our existence. We have an incredible amount of valuable spectrum, and we have to make sure that we use that spectrum and that we justify our existence. And that also dovetails with increased membership. So if you can get more people into the hobby, we light up the bands better. And then when they go up there and they look around and they say, hey, you're not using this spectrum, we want it. They don't have an argument. It's a tough thing though. And we'll talk about that a little later when we talk about 3.5 gigahertz and what happened there. But we really have to figure out how to keep ham radio going strong. I kind of keep coming back to that again and again, because some of the things that we've thought were our reasons to be here are being slowly eroded away. And we have to be cognizant of that so that we don't lose this wonderful hobby that's been a big part of our lives. So please keep that in your thoughts as you think about ham radio. I think the state of ham radio operators in general is very strong. We're a great community. We do great work. We work well together. We do productive things that benefit a huge number of people. But we have to figure out how to keep ham radio relevant. On other fronts, we'll talk about some of the new stuff in the league. We have our usual frequency challenges, regulatory challenges, getting the FCC to actually do anything kind of challenges, getting enforcement to happen is always a difficult thing. So that's just part of the state of amateur radio at any given point in time. So anyway, that's what I wanted to just headline as we start diving in here.
Kristen, can I make a comment?
Sure, go ahead.
I'm Steve, AC6P. I'm connected with Sue Ellen, K6 CPA. I think it's worth noting that we need to also emphasize, besides the communication aspect, emergency communication, that 97.1 also talks about the reserve technical talent that exists in amateur radio. I'm a professor of electrical engineering. I teach an RF hardware class at UCSC, and I have brought a number of students into this hobby since 2002, probably 150 students. They are not attracted to communications. They are attracted by the technical angle of amateur radio, and many of them then move on into appreciating the art side of communication. So that dimension also should not be neglected in our emphasis.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And, you know, another sort of gateway drug, and that's one, right? You get students who are very interested in the sort of engineering and physics side of it. Another one too is, I know a lot of you who have been in the hobby a long time, like me, look at FT8 and kind of askance. And FT8 is kind of not real ham radio in some sense, or even Echolink for that matter. But I think of these things as gateway drugs. So if you can get someone interested in the fact that they can get on an HT and talk to my friend Dennis in Cornwall or something like that, or get on FT8 and kind of play DX bingo, which that's how I think of it, is you get on there and you point and you click and the QSOs happen. It's kind of the beginning of introduction to the magic. So you can have some easy way to get in, and then you know, find out that there is something really interesting going on here with propagation, for example, or trying to work stations, or the thrill of no infrastructure, and then move on to other things in the hobby that are really fun. So that's something that I think a lot of amateurs, I've seen them actively not promote or disparage things like FT8, things like Echolink. But I think these are really important parts of our hobby that help people get interested in the first place so that they can discover the rest of it. All right, any other comments on the State of the Union?
Yeah, Kristen, W60Q with a comment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the things that a group of us have done, and I know there's been some stuff written in QST about it, but we really encourage this, is making use of the maker fairs. We have a group called Not Your Grandpa's Ham Radio that we've done for many, many years up at San Mateo at the Maker Fair there. And it was always well received by youth and their families, and even, you know, older folks. But then that emphasizes the technology side of it. We demonstrated, and we did a lot of Maker Fairs throughout California. Unfortunately, the San Mateo Fair shut down. But I think that's something that, after this COVID thing is over with, that's a great opportunity for ham radio to make presentations and do a booth at a maker fair somewhere, and show ham radio from the technology side to those folks. I think that's a perfect opportunity for it. So there you go. So,
yeah, thanks. There's
Mine's
yeah.
Katie 0IKO with a
Okay, hang on
comment.
one sec. Hang on one sec. I was just going to comment that I've gone to the maker fairs over the years. I've spoken at maker fairs. I think that there's a lot of good cross-pollination there, and also with these hacker spaces. But I haven't seen the huge interest that I'd really like to see. But go ahead with your comment. It was the last station.
Chris and John in Nevada.
Yeah.
I don't know who the other person was, but it looks like they bowed out. Here, we've talked with ARRL a few times about the hacker conventions here in town. I know you and I got barbecued pretty good out in Albuquerque a couple of years just because we use the term hacker. Ham radio operators don't want to hear that. That doesn't mean they're busting into your bank account. You know, they're just finding new ways of using technology. But here at the conventions we have here in town, and I know Dennis and Jane are on board with us today. They're a couple of our instructors, and they kind of lead up our VE program out here. But we generally give, I think the last go around, and I might be wrong, like 365 ham radio examinations at that event. Those folks are overwhelmingly interested in SDR. They have a whole bunch of their own ham radio events that they've created only because the ham radio community hasn't stepped up and done anything for them. And for several years now, I've advocated to the ARRL that we should have a presence at those conventions here. We do have it at some other conventions, but the other conventions are geared at 70-year-old guys who are, aging out of the hobby and aging out of their professional communications careers, like that. I think we're on the wrong end of the spectrum, like that. So certainly we have personnel in Nevada to staff those events, but we haven't been able to generate much interest in Newington as far as having a presence at that. And there's, I believe, three. Those of you who are involved might correct me. I think there's 3 hacker conventions going on at the same time here in town, ranging all the way up to like the Black Hat thing, which are the deep people, like that. But anyway, we're not there, but the FBI and every agency in the world that uses people that use electronic technology is there recruiting, but we're just not there, other than being invited to give the exams. So it's something to think about.
Yeah, that's definitely something to think about, because a presence makes a difference.
It's Barry K6ST. I got someone to add, Kirsten.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good.
Go ahead, Barry.
I have one question and a couple of comments. Is there a vice director, or what's the process about that? So that's something I want to know.
Oh, go ahead.
At some point.
I can answer that now. There isn't one at the moment. The way it works is I will recommend somebody, and then President Roderick will actually sign that person on.
Any idea how far out that is roughly?
So I've been doing lots of
Neutral.
thinking, but I haven't settled yet on whom I want to recommend.
Okay, cool. 2 other things. One of them is I do a ton of work with clients on Zoom for all sorts of programs. And I was doing this, for the last 13 years, way before a pandemic, but there's an opportunity to leverage, and I can talk to you and other people after, to leverage what's going on right now, even though we, quote, are not together. And ham radio itself, even above and beyond Zoom, has some really powerful things. So happy to talk about that, because there's something good going on in the middle of the pandemic, particularly social distancing, ham radio. Second of all, I'm happy to be part of this. I actually think we need a new lexicon. Somebody mentioned on the text chat a little while ago about something about mode. It's not a real mode or this or that. I think there's a lexicon that we all use, hams, and we're not really clear what it is. We have an old lexicon, and I think it's worth looking at some of the verbiage and what it means and how to engage people. So happy to help in that area.
All right, that sounds good.
Kristen, I have a comment.
Yeah, go.
Yeah, Ron Smith, KE6RS here in Pinole. On the subject of recruiting new people into the hobby, I'm a VE with our local team, the East Bay Amateur Radio Club, and we're pretty close to UC Berkeley. And our VE team, along with some help from a few other teams, have done several mega sessions at UC Berkeley. The EE professor there encourages his students to study and pass their technician test. We've tested in the spring several years upwards of 80 to 90 candidates, and this produces a lot of new hams. As one of the earlier speakers mentioned, they're not always in it for the communications, but it's a technical thing. So that leads me to think that perhaps we should encourage the ARRL to do what it can to connect with professors of STEM subjects all over the country and encourage them to push their students a little bit. They won't all stay in the hobby, obviously, but if we can get them hooked a little bit, maybe when they get through with their studies and they settle down to a different kind of life, maybe they'll get back into it again. It's happened in the past. Perhaps it can keep going. That's my comment. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ron. There's a
comment.
Okay, hang on one sec. Hold on one sec. There's been an effort by the league to revive clubs at universities, and that's gone very well. But this also brings up something that I've noticed a lot. Well, of course, I'm sure you have too, that getting people to stay in the hobby is a real problem. We have a licensing cohort that's, 600 and some thousand in the US right now, for example. But how many of those people actually stay with the hobby and don't just let their license time out after the HT is collecting dust in the closet? think about that. It's a very small number that we convert into real hams. All right, I'll take like 2 more comments and then we're going to move on a little bit. Go ahead.
This is KSUSJ. Can I just say a brief
Yeah, go
comment?
ahead. Sure.
Yeah, I kind of agree with some of the things that just were said, and that the league is just, in general, the ham radio community, I think, is going through a generational change. And we have to tap into, find out a little bit what the younger technical students are involved in. And yes, I commend, the league really changed. It stands, looking at QST and the things that they brought on was that I noticed there was a lot of diversity in what they're advertising. I see younger hams, I see women. We do have a learning network. These things were very positive than the old standard amateur outlook. So yeah, there's going to be some diversity in the hobby, and I want to bring that on. I'd like to see that. And yeah, we're going to have to tap into that new generation. We're going to have to study what they're really interested in and where this, and maybe it's not going to always be the traditional concept of radio. So I'll back on out of here.
Kristen,
right,
Bill.
okay. Yeah, Bill, go ahead.
Yeah, just, on the comments on the Maker Faire, that actually started many years ago back at a convention down in Monterey. Bob Enderbitzen actually ran off to a Maker Faire that was happening at the same time as a convention down there. But don't forget about other activities. Here in our section, we're involved with, when it's meeting, the Pacific Coast Air Museum. And you'd be surprised the number of people who are pilots are also interested in amateur radio. Bob discovered that when he did a Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association. So if you think about it, those of us that are in, what I call my favorite hobby of a lifetime, amateur radio, also have other interests that dovetail. So photography, flying, there's a lot of other things that go on. So we've been concentrating here locally on other aspects besides just Maker Faires. Do things that aren't necessarily technology, but have some brief touch on communications, and you'll find a lot of hidden amateur radio operators there. I'm backing out.
All right, yeah, Bill, definitely. I'm a pilot, and I definitely agree. And in fact, I think we can learn from some of these other associations as well. And I often bring up AOPA and as an organization that's a lot like ARRL, but offers more value. And I'd like to see ARRL offer more value to our members in the same fashion that AOPA does. But I really like that idea of partnering with other fun activities, other hobbies, things that people do where radio can be an adjunct or just another hobby offshoot. All right, this was a great discussion. I really appreciate it, but in the interest of time, I want to get on to a couple more things. So as you may have noticed, we have a new CEO at headquarters, David Minster. He's, I forget his call sign, it's a number 2 call sign. He's from the New York area. He's, in my brief interactions with him, he's been really great. And I think that of the last couple of CEOs so far, he seems like the best. And he's really taken headquarters and started thinking about how headquarters needs to change to accommodate all of this stuff we've been talking about. We're talking about technology, we're talking about engaging colleges, all that stuff, talking about working with other hobbies and pursuits. And David is really all for all of this stuff. And I really appreciate that. And he's also working to kind of revive the culture at headquarters and make it more accommodating to you and make it more productive. I think that this will be a real win for all of you out there, that headquarters will be there to serve you even more than it has been in the past. So I ask you to give your support to David as he kind of finds his way around. David's a longtime ham and contester, so he knows the hobby pretty well. But of course, he's trying to get everything that's going on at the league into a controllable and a sort of a non-firefight mode. And there were a number of things that needed to be reined in, and there's still a few. But I think he's doing a great job so far. I really appreciate his attention to detail and his passion. And one of his passions is getting the computing infrastructure at the league into the 21st century. And as you may have noticed, the website is pretty stale and it's hard to find things. And David's all about fixing that problem and making it more usable. We've got the lifelong learning project, which was actually started under some prior people, moving forward to a point where we can start putting some content up. They're looking for content creators for that, as a matter of fact. And if you have something, please contact someone at headquarters, because they'd be interested in producing it, I'm sure. But I think that this will help us interact with staff at headquarters and get things done. And you know, I can only do so much with them. It's really up to what David Minster, what he wants to do, and with the staff, it's his job to direct what goes on at headquarters. As members of the board, our job is to advise and provide guidance. But he's the guy that runs all the day-to-day stuff. So I'm really excited about having him. It's been a position that's been kind of hard to fill properly, but I think we're finally on the way to doing that. COVID-19 obviously has affected all of us in negative and positive ways. You can see that everybody's at home, obviously. We're not having this meeting in person, but look at the benefit. If you look around the other way, right now we have 252 participants on this call. And if we were in one physical location, this would never happen. And so I think this is a really interesting discovery about communications that we kind of knew was out there, but never really exploited before in this way. I've been giving talks at clubs all over the US. It's kind of exciting. I really miss being with all of you. I miss seeing you face to face. I certainly do. But I hope that once we're past all of this, we will continue to have this as another channel, another thing we can do. You know, for example, I can imagine going to Livermore and having our meetings over there, but also having us simultaneously a Zoom meeting so that all of you can be here. So that's the good side. And it's been tough on headquarters too. They've had, they were actually not able to go into the building for a long time. They were able to go up to about half staff at one point. Not sure what the state of affairs is now, but it wouldn't surprise me if they have to leave the building again. And that caused them to rearrange staff so that they had a chance to be off-site and work, which the league had never done before. And I'm hoping that this will open up other avenues for participation. For example, you know, mostly staff that was at headquarters had to live in Newington or right nearby. And all of the software staff who was trying to write code for example, Logbook of the World, which is something I'm pretty involved with these days, were stuck basically with the talent pool that was right there in Newington or very close by. And I'm hoping this will pry that loose so that we can get a lot more remote participation in making things better in that department. And for better or for worse, I've been tasked with being the chair of a committee that's going to rethink the computing infrastructure at headquarters. And that also includes Logbook of the World. And Logbook of the World is a great service, but we want to make it even better. And it's going to be a real challenge. I may need some help from you guys as we do this. We're going to try and lift it all up to the cloud and try to make it a resilient and extensible system, which it is not right now. You may have noticed in the last contest that the queue got pretty long. It took, you know, maybe up to 10 hours to process some of the logs in Logbook of the World, and we want to fix that. So some of that is because of COVID-19, because we couldn't get people into headquarters or into the rack space colos. where the servers were, but some of it is also just design problems. So that's something that's affected the league. But the most exciting thing is discovering that we really can do these things like big giant Zoom calls and all get a chance to see one another. That's the best part of all. I wanted to spend a couple of minutes on ARRL finances because I'm on the A&F committee, which is the committee that handles the finances. Only recently got shanghaied into that one because Jim was on that committee. But it's a very interesting area for me. I've always been interested in finance. I think that the league is in a very good financial position. Thank goodness. Thanks to all of you who are members. That's what makes it happen. And all of you who also donate to the league. We don't know what it's, we just looked at the finances for 2019 and it looked real good. For 2020, who knows? You know, expenses are down because it's, you know, not as many people are in the office and traveling. And that's a good thing for the balance sheet, but there's a lot of uncertainty as we go forward. So if you get the league's annual report, you'll get to see what the finances are doing. If you're really interested, and I think it's a good idea to be interested in that. Please take a moment when you have a moment to look through the annual reports and see how things are doing financially. But I think the league is in good shape, at least for now. And part of our recruiting effort too is to make sure that we have a lot of new hams, but also have a lot of new hams that participate and become members of the ARRL, because the ARRL is here, as I always say, to you know, deal with all the mallet heads in Washington, and also to make sure that the things that we have been granted are ours to keep for a while. So please, you know, if you know somebody who's a ham who's not a member of the league, talk to them about maybe becoming a member of the league, because that's how we keep things going. I mentioned briefly all the IT stuff that's going on. There's a lot of David Minster, our CEO, he's really into this. He really wants to have us have the kind of online services that you would expect from a 21st century organization. And we have not had that up until now. And I think that we deserve that from our headquarters. And there are a number of projects going on behind the scenes to try and make that better. There's this big switch to this thing called Personify, which is gonna manage all the club-oriented things. And that's been a big project that's been going on for a while, but it's in theory, close to actually coming to fruition. And another project is this lifelong learning thing. And then the third thing will be redoing the website, which is going to be a big deal. And I don't think we've even started on that. But there's a lot of work to do there. Maybe if we can start getting more volunteer and other work from outside of Newington involved, we can all make a better system out of it. But we have to kind of reimagine it architecturally from the beginning. But you know, you pay an amount of money into the league every year. It's almost $50. And the question is, what are you getting for that? Well, we want to use some of this computing infrastructure to help you get more from that. I don't have anything more specific I can say about it at the minute, but we're sure thinking about how we can give you value for your membership, more than just getting QST or on the air. By the way, you guys like on the air? Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Extremely positive reviews, extremely positive.
Well, maybe somebody should explain what it is.
Yeah, sure. So on the air is an alternative to QST. Oops, somebody's phone's ringing. It's an alternative to QST. So for many new hams, QST is a bit intimidating. There's lots of schematics and all sorts of scary stuff in there. But On the Air is more of an introductory magazine, and you can choose to get one or the other in print version, but you get both in the online version. So it's a much more slick kind of travel brochure magazine that kind of, makes our hobby seem not as crazy. I know a lot of you love all the technology, and I do too. My goodness, it's my favorite thing. But for someone who is just been handed an HT and a new technician ticket, it's just not going to compute for them. So that's, I think, on the air is a great step. Let's see. Let's talk about spectrum. So we've had a big, what's the right word? Disappointment with 3.5 gigahertz. And it's not for lack of trying. We got a lot of evidence together that we use 3.5 gigahertz, especially with the point-to-point microwave links. And our lawyer that works with the FCC is very well connected. Excuse me, David Sadal. He's a great guy, really knows his stuff. And he has lunch with those guys when he could still have lunch with them all the time. He knows them very well. But there were forces pushing really hard to grab this spectrum. The fight's not completely over. We've refiled our comments and tried to tell the FCC that we really need to at least be secondary on this band. And the FAA has filed comments, and because they have a number of radar altimeters near there in the S-band. And so they're saying this is a safety of flight issue. That might help too. We're hoping for reconsideration, but I'm not holding my breath. And this is really unfortunate because it sets precedent. And the thing about it is also that they don't have a clear use for the spectrum. Some of it they're gonna get for cellular stuff for 5G. That's what the FAA is upset about because that's gonna cause a lot of carriers in that area. But some of it is for vehicle-to-vehicle communication that's undefined. And it's very tough to fight against that. It's sort of a speculative spectrum grab. And we just have to keep fighting the good fight. And when these things come up as NPRMs and stuff, I urge you all to comment. Just participate in that process in whatever way you see fit. I hope you'll comment that we'd like to retain the spectrum. But please comment in a way that's constructive. The FCC, when it sees a rant, they'll just throw it away. But if you have a constructive comment, they will take the time, some staffer will read it, and it may have an effect. So please be concise, but also be forceful, but never rake them over the coals because that's not gonna help anybody. I urge you to-
make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is Tim, K6BIV. I've had a 3.5 gig microwave point-to-point link between my house and Diablo for several years. As most of us know, here in Northern California, we have a frequency coordinating group called NARC. And I don't know how many point-to-point links are up. I'm the only one that filed for coordination. And I'm the only one that's listed on the publicly accessible frequency coordination charts. The same thing holds true for 420. I mean, we have used the 420 megahertz frequencies, mostly for linking, mostly analog repeaters for decades. And for fear of somebody knowing what your link frequency is, we show no activity in a public database that anyone and everyone can look at, including the commission, as they're kind of trolling through to see what spectrum might be available to them. And there's other groups are guilty of the same, let's say, non-publication. I know in the southern part, not our division, but Scrubba, as a matter of fact, they don't publish any of their frequencies. Well, they have some that are quote the public channels, but most of it's private, and they don't publish it. So they're not publishing the use of the spectrum, which someone then could suggest that it's not being used, and then there's a land grab. And I don't know why we're afraid. If somebody wants to use a frequency, We've all got scanners and the ability to monitor stuff to see what kind of activity, if any, there is. And we don't seem to do it. And some groups are afraid to put that information out in the public view. And I think that that causes us a problem. So,
You know, it does make it harder to document use. Now, you have to remember that these days, the FCC, there's almost no engineers there. It's almost all lawyers. And what ends up happening is they don't really scan for use. We have to show use. And if we have trouble kind of surveying the land in amateur radio space and being able to come up with a list of use cases, it gets harder to push that case at the FCC. So yes, that's a valid point. So please, consider making it at least easy to know that you're using a band. I know that when we started fighting this 3.5 gigahertz thing, there was a call for people to tell, what their uses were of the band, and we got a lot of good responses. But unfortunately, in this case, we were just running up against a very difficult adversary. Even the military is going to lose to commercial interests in this area. And we have another threat at 5 gigahertz too. So it's not over. We still have a lot of work to do to make sure that we are defending the bands and trying to expand whatever we can. We have a lot more hope in the HF area because it's not as used, but up in the microwaves, it's very tough, very tough. And, consider the Spectrum Defense Fund as a way you can contribute if you can't contribute directly. Let me transition now to the license fee. I know this has been a big deal for everybody.
Kristen had a comment.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, it's just not the FCC that is looking at taking advantage of like 3.3 to 3.4, 3.5 gigs. There's a WRC 23 agenda item 1.2 that is going to study switching that same band and 10.0 to 10.5 gigahertz over to IMT, which is the International Mobile Telecommunications, basically all mobile telecommunications. So it's just not, we're not being victimized by just the FCC. This is an international aspect of it too that will come up at WRC 23. There's actually 2 agenda items that deal with that particular band, 3,300 to 3,500. So it's worldwide where the fight's going on, that's for sure.
No, great point. Yeah, and not surprising at all. You see a lot of people want broadband communications that's got to take up a slice of spectrum. So yeah, it's a big deal and it's a tough fight. And people like Rod are there fighting it on the international front as well. So this is kind of one of the biggest reasons that you have the league here for you. All right, anybody else on Spectrum before we move on?
Matheson, KJ6DZB.
Yeah, go ahead, Matheson.
We had our club meeting last night. I just wanted to share this. We got to ask Santa what we wanted for Christmas, and a few of our members were very adamant that we really hope that Santa is able to bring us some more Spectrum. It will be a great. I think it's already impacted the mesh community. People using Arden, people that have their own 3.4 gigahertz links. But we fear, and we're running into a dilemma where how do we expand when we face threat of losing the use of 5 gigahertz as well. We have SFWIM has just gotten a very gracious grant from Amper to expand their mesh network, and yet we face what do we do? Will we have a spectrum to be able to continue to develop an emergency communications network that utilizes microwave? And that is a dilemma we face moving into 2021 and beyond. So I really look forward to the ARRL fighting the good fight to ensure that we have spectrum there on 5, on 3, on 2.4 gigahertz and 10 gigahertz, where amateurs do put this to use. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Matheson. Yeah. And, again, I don't mean to be just shilling for the league, but this is a really important fight. And it takes, someone at the tip of the spear to make this happen. And people like Rod and David Siddall are the ones that really have to fight it right on the front lines there. So please make sure that you consider Spectrum Defense Fund, as well as getting people to join the leagues, that we have the funds. It's not cheap to pay the lawyers, let me tell you, to make this happen.
Kristen, this is Carol.
Mhm.
Kind of staying on the topic of Spectrum, there was just a news article that got out that Australia was denied the use of 60 meters altogether. And I guess the concerns that they had was interference with their military operations or government operations in the band. And there was some rumor going around last year. I remember hearing that there was also a question about our 60 meter allocations because perhaps of difficulties of us keeping our operations on the center of each channel and concerns the government had for interference. Have you had any updates on the status of 60 meters? And because it was supposed to be expanded to use the entire band, not just individual channels.
Yeah, whatever. I don't have a lot of information, but I'll tell you what I know. And that is that we attempted to get 60 meters expanded so that we would have not just a channelized allocation, but an actual slice of the band. But the military pushback was really big. And so here in the US, we are stuck with the channels. And it was not helped by bad behavior. So we had bad behavior on 60 meters, not getting out of the way for other signals. We are secondary on that band, not staying on channel, as you mentioned. Made it much more difficult to negotiate around that. So, we're representatives of our hobby, and I know all of you are great operators, but if you know anybody who's misbehaving on the bands, it really doesn't help in these spectrum fights. They just get that much harder exponentially. So make sure you're a member of the Good Operators Club and that everybody you know is as well. Okay, I want to touch briefly on the licensing fee. I know that all of you are upset about that. I was upset about that. It seemed like just bureaucracy. We don't know what the outcome of that will be yet. There's a NPRM, there was a comment period. ARRL filed comments. I hope many of you may have filed comments as well to get the sort of an exemption for amateur radio. And this was not targeted at amateur radio as far as I know. The way it was explained to me is that it became, they just kind of went through all of their fee structures and said, okay, we're just going to uniformly impose fees on everybody, and we got swept up in that thing. So we're trying to get an exemption. I don't know how the FCC is going to rule on that yet. And of course, we've got all sorts of changes going on in Washington at this time. So we'll have to just see how that plays out. Right? But I sure hope that they don't impose that $50 fee. That just seems quite onerous.
Question?
Yeah.
Greg, KO6GH. The as I understand things, and the question is, am I misinterpreting stuff? The law that caused this whole thing with the fees was called something on the lines of reallocating spectrum, words to that effect. Like the objective seems to be trying to clear the band so that they can be reused. And by whining, we're just playing into their cards.
I'm not sure about that. I have to check on that.
Comment or question,
Yeah,
Kristen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is Daryl, KI6LDM. This was, the FCC, I guess, was ordered by Congress 2 years ago by something called the Ray Bonds Act. And the Ray Bonds Act was basically there's legal people out there that are better positioned than I am, but essentially the FCC needed to go and collect fees for commercial and or those who were using the bands per se, but as a commercial, under commercial act or under commercial usage license, whatever. Essentially the FCC is telling everybody, including the amateur radio community, that we're just following the law, when actually the law had exempted non-commercial usage from that act. But the FCC seems to either have ignored it or whatnot. I've done some research. I wouldn't say that I'm an expert, but I believe so that was my comment to the FCC was, you're not, understood that you want to do this, but the amateur community is not a commercial community. So I'm not exactly sure why you're trying to collect a fee except just to try to collect fees. So am I misunderstanding that?
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. Obviously, Jim, of course, was a lawyer, and I'm not. So I'm sure that, we got caught up in a steamroller, would be my guess. And, at some point we may be able to resurrect our exempted status. And because of the importance of what we do and because of our role in various, all the things that make amateur radio. But we're just going to have to let this play out. And of course, again, we have David Siddall up there who's in with the FCC to fight for us. And even if they impose this fee, we'll keep fighting it because it's really a bad thing for amateur radio.
It certainly would affect young people.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Young people wanting to get into the hobby, anybody on a budget, anybody who's on a fixed income, it's a bad deal all the way around.
I guess the point I was trying to make was that the title of the Ray Barnes whatever Act, the title of that seems to indicate they're trying to clear out the spectrum just overall, and saying that, hey, you're gonna decimate the hobby. We're playing into their hands. So yeah, that's the objective. Yay, it's working, and we don't want that to happen.
Yeah, I can't speak to their motivations under the covers. I just don't know. But I'm just going to have to trust the people that know the law better than I about this, and also know the inner workings of the FCC.
Christian, quick question. Since Congress has a telecommunications committee that deals with the FCC, why hasn't there been any advocacy for going to that committee and having it come in the other side where these decisions were made from?
So I don't know if there has or has not been. So I know that, again, David Siddall knows these people, and we do have a lobbying firm we work with. So I'll certainly ask that question at the next board meeting.
I mean, certainly 700 and some odd thousand people writing letters to a handful of congressmen, might wake them up to what's going on the other side of the street.
Yeah, well, that's something we all can do as well.
Yeah, the best explanation I've heard is that it's a mistake in drafting the bill. Previous bill said we charge for these licenses and everything else is free. The new one says these are free and we charge for everything else. But the wild card that picked up amateur radio, they just missed it.
So it lies with Congress.
Yeah.
Going after the FCC doesn't really help very much unless Congress says it gives a letter of interpretation.
Well, filed a comment with the FCC, and I took my comment and I pasted it in an email to my senators and my congressperson, and basically telling them, hey, you guys need to do something about this.
Next time you vote for a ham.
There you go.
I'm not running, sorry. I know better.
Well, we'll have to let it play out. I'll ask the question about the political side of this the next time I get a chance to. All right, let's talk about MCOM a little bit. We've had, and that goes a little bit with the inactive areas. We haven't done a whole lot with Aries Connect, and I know that a lot of you have complaints about Aries Connect. Am I right about that? So I think that, yeah, some concerns. And this may be part of the whole rethinking of the infrastructure. I believe that's on the list to think about what to do with Aries Connect. There's a lot of things that it doesn't do that we need it to do, even though it's been somewhat customized for us. But the larger question too is, what is our role ongoing? with emergency communications. We have a new emergency communications director at the league, and that's going to help hopefully get some focus. But what are you guys hearing about the agencies you work with? Are you still relevant? Are they real interested in your help? Or I'm more interested in the reverse side of that. Are there groups that are not interested in your help?
In Cupertino, the Parks and Recs asked us to do what's called First Look. We did a drill back in November 12th, and we did it including what's called a infectious disease planning, which means that we actually did it with all the COVID guidelines put in place. But yes, the city of Cupertino finds us relevant. We were active with the PSPS last year. I think the concern that we had, that the county has, and I would really highly recommend that the new EC coordinator for the ARRL communicate with Tim Howard, KE6TEM, or KE6TIM rather. He's now the new EC for the county. He took Michael, NE6, Michael actually went to Texas. But anyway, the comments that Michael said was that they I'll just be frank, that the ARRL just really didn't listen to what Santa Clara County was doing. Now, I wasn't involved with those conversations, but that was the comment that Michael told me. So I think it would be really good if we had some really good collaboration. The county has been doing a lot, what's called credential evaluation. So I'll make this brief. Sims and MINS, we have a credentials category. So C4 or Type 4, Type 3 follows the same paradigm for amateur radio operator communications as well. Net control, field operators, packet, whatnot. And so the reason why that makes it relevant is so that when amateur radio communication is needed, they can actually ask for credential-based operators. And that's where we're finding the relevancy, if that made sense. KI6LDM, anyway.
All right, thanks, Daryl. Does anybody have stories of negative interactions where you're basically told you're irrelevant?
Bill?
Yeah,
Well, I comment.
Yeah, go
Bill
for it.
GJB.
Me?
USJ, you were first, go.
USJ. Well, you know, we're in Calaveras County. The county's very big. You know, it's a situation here where, yeah, NCOM, I'm looking for NCOM. Let me tell you, if you got products coming out, that's fine. I don't, because of the fire situation here, we've been involved in PSPS. We've been called up for fire alerts and things like that. And I don't have a very big shack. My shack is very portable. You know, I have a go box, I have a go kit and a bug out bag. So, you know, it's just a situation that we're in California that, you know, the media picks up on this, that, you know, you're going to have a moment's notice of evacuation. And, you know, if I had a very big shack here, I probably would leave it behind. You know, as far as negativity, yeah, I don't think the county really utilizes us very much. But primarily, this is a vacation area and a retirement type of area, so we're not trained in any type of firefighting. What has come along, and I thought that was very positive, is we're very associated with the Calaveras Amateur Disaster Services, or Animal Disaster Services, excuse me. We run these drills because one thing is we have equipment here. There's ranchers in the area, so they have trucks and horse trailers and things like that, because the aftermath of these fires is that the animals, the livestock gets left behind. They're displaced. And we have used amateur radio to develop these convoys of horse trailers, and we're just beginning to practice that, and we will be probably involved maybe during the fire, but after the fire, of evacuating these animals that are raised and frightened, and that will have to be picked up, and my Apple battery is getting low. But you know, that's what we've kind of got into up here. But yeah, you know, if I was looking for it, yeah, I need a lot of products as far as solar power and stuff. And that's all I have to say right now. That's the condition that we face up here because of being in a area that we've had fires before. So back to you.
All right, thank you.
Christian,
Anybody else?
I have a comment. I've got some input from a served agency perspective and the types of organizations to look for. I, like Mr. Fox, also had significant concerns with the latest ARRL rework of Aries. What's critical is to have is to know what you have to add value, and when you figure out what that's going to be it to NGOs or otherwise, and you get called into a meeting, and I've had this in recruitment, recruiting people for Cal OES reserve unit. Don't show up at the interview with your go bag in your vest and all your HTs strapped on. We want to talk to you and figure out who you are, not what you're carrying with you, because you won't use that kind of stuff. Don't show up and go to dinner and order cocktails when you're talking to your served agency representatives. Is one way of just a very extreme of the impression. And I've been doing this for a long time, and I served a couple of agencies as a communications worker in 2 fire departments in Texas. I'm familiar with the people that run the amateur liaison programs down there, much as we would expect Cal OES to do here, and 12 years with Cal OES. And you have to figure out what the value, situation is, what you bring to the situation. I know San Mateo County in the state, primarily there are a lot of hams in both those their organizations, but those hams are going to be doing something not just amateur radio. They have to be willing to follow public safety discipline and understand that you're part of a public safety agency. You're not coming in there as hams setting up field day. So you may be working on microwave dishes. You may be deploying portable repeaters on hilltops, just like hams want to do, but in a very different genre, capacity, and discipline. And the ARRL completely missed that nature of the discipline of what served agencies need and want if there's augmentation. And it might not be invoking the RACES program because their 700 meg trunking system went down. You're not going to be doing a lot of police communication or fire dispatching. You're going to be augmenting back-end services. And anybody trying to get into this needs to know what those back-end services are. You're not going to be fighting fire. You're not going to be on patrol. But that whole program was rewritten, like Michael said, just out of ignorance of what served agencies may want or need, or even local community awareness of what's happened. The fires is a very good example. There's certainly an opportunity to help set up an early warning system at the community level that's got nothing to do with the sheriff's department, other than probably being recognized by them and allowing transit to go service the public. So there's a lot more homework that needs to be done, and discussion with the actual served agencies to figure out what's going on. Unions also play a very significant part of it. I know in the state of California that the telecommunications technicians group, the radio shop, had a significant problem when they found out that Cal OES had volunteers that were responding in their 6 regions. So that took some negotiation to work out. We just need to do a better job of figuring out what the job is, rather than sitting here going, I've got 18 HTs, I'm essential, I'm valuable, you must use us. If you haven't figured out what the job is, you're not going to be able to fill it.
Hey, Christian, I got a comment, just K6 deals.
Okay, I just wanted to say something I got you, Dan. Say something to Jim. That's not the first time I've heard that story about how it's the agencies that need to tell us what they need, as opposed to us walking in and saying, this is what we're going to do for you. So I appreciate that comment. Dan, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm the volunteer radio for the Palo Alto Veterans Administration in Palo Alto, we're kind of a unique situation. We are responsible for all VA hospital from roughly from Redwood City to Monterey, then from the Pacific Ocean out to Sonora. That is the Palo Alto Veterans Administration campus that we're responsible for. We're finding a couple of things in there. Talking with the local county agency, how do you work? Who do we contact during emergency? For example, another thing we're also discussing, I've been doing emergency for, God, before the Lexington fire years ago, is that I know it's county to county, they don't talk to each other. For example, there's a group up in Woodside who do not want to deal with San Mateo County OES. They will deal with Santa Clara OES, even though they're not in Santa Clara jurisdiction. There's a lot of negativity between county and county. And there's all, that needs to be stopped. Someone needs to take the bull and say, guys, screw it. We all work together. We have a major earthquake. It affects everybody. Let's help the people that we need to help. And that's my observation. Thank you.
Thanks,
Kristen.
Christine, I have a comment. Actually, a couple of them. Carl, KJ6OCL, Trinity County, California.
Go ahead, Carl. And I know there's someone else out there. Go ahead, Carl.
When I first got interested in emergency communications, I was on the disaster council that the county has, and I started working with the OES emergency manager, who was a retired deputy and did not want anything to do with amateur radio. Just totally off the board. After some digging, found out that during some type of an emergency, a ham operator supposedly made a mistake in a communication, whatever. So I started at that level, and over time, kept talking to people, talked to the sheriff. The county finally moved OES out of the sheriff's office and into HHS, and things have progressed from there. HHS just recently, their public health department, I think it was 3 years ago now, two and a half, something like that, was able to obtain a grant from Department of Homeland Security to harden emergency communications in the county. And I think here, there's a very big difference between the areas where we work. If you're in the city, San Jose, Sacramento, wherever it is, emergency communication is pretty robust. You get into the counties that we have in Northern California, especially the Sacramento Valley section, it's all mountainous. People are widely spread out. There's a low population. My county has 14,000 people in the whole county, and it's a huge size county. Anyway, they got a grant that is going to allow us, and we've already started the project, to put in, I think it's 18 or 19 emergency 2-meter stations, mostly in public buildings that have been used from time to time for shelters. And that's progressing quite well. We've got pretty good standing now. The emergency communication in this county is not very good. Regular cell service is spotty. Without an incident happening, most people don't have landlines anymore, and that's a very spotty one. We get a fire, everything goes down. Sheriff's office doesn't have enough deputies to take care of regular everyday issues. So a lot of this depends on where you're located as to what the needs are from government. And we've been working in that direction. I think our pitfall right now is trying to get our members to get trained. Whatever the government agencies you're working for, plus Red Cross, who I work closely with, they want to see the people that are going to come into their situation have the proper training to do it. And that's the biggest hurdle I'm facing right now, is to convince these operators that they can't just walk in with their HT and say, hey, if it's got 4 wheels, I can drive it. They need something more than that. And I think that's, I think it falls into what Jim was talking about too. Excuse me. So anyway, it has a lot to do with where you're operating and who you're working with, but it does require somebody to go in and really get to know the people who you want to work with and show them what you have and how you can do it and what they want. And that was the other point that was made. And I think for me, that's very important. I need to know exactly what they're expecting when somebody sits at a radio. So,
just final comment, USJ.
Okay. Yeah. By the way,
I don't want to appear.
I want to try and get people
Yeah,
to use the
I'm
raise
sorry.
hand feature, because that'll help us them sort through things. But that's okay. Go ahead, USJ.
No, I want a final comment here. I didn't want to seem critical or, the Cal Fire Service are great. People here in the foothills, I think, are very much prepared. They work on preparedness because we know that the resources most likely in a major disaster will be the city, and we will have to be 3 days or so without, certain things. But, I'm very satisfied with the work that we do get as far as the animals, because I know the resources of my group.
Right.
I would accept a first aid something, or that's just the way it is here. And yes, we have spotty services as far as up in Railroad Flat and West Point. Radios are needed. There is no cell services in the area. So go on with your meeting, and I'll use the raised hand feature. Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you, Krista. I'll back.
Okay, Bill Hillendahl, you were next. Oh, you're muted.
Is that for me?
No, this is for
There
Bill.
we go. Okay, my space bar quit working. How do you like that? Anyway, in our neck of the woods, we just got an interesting email from the city of Santa Rosa. They're totally disbanding the amateur radio group that's working with them because basically there's a lack of need. And I'll give you a little bit of history from the 1986 Valentine's Day flood in our river area out here, where amateur radio was the only communication. The sheriff's office equipment was down, Pac Bell was down, it was Pac Bell. You had amateur radio operators on the ground in National Guard trucks, in the helicopters, assisting. Since then, a number of incidences have happened throughout the nation, not to mention locally, that have allowed our public safety agencies to really throw a lot of money into technology and significantly upgraded the communication systems here in most of our counties and greater than Sonoma County area, so that we're basically, and of course it was headed, their radio department was headed by Ham, of course, and they're 4 times redundant, for example, in Sonoma County. And if you all know our area, since 2017, we've been through substantial number of disasters, really, really heavy, not to mention the associated PG&E power outages, during which, all of which, amateur radio was nearly superfluous, simply because there wasn't a comms emergency. I kind of saw the writing on the wall. Those of you up in Reno remember one of the MCOM West programs on VOST, or virtual operations support teams. And that's pretty much what they're going to here. Besides their multiple redundant comm systems that they have, they're communicating amongst themselves and with the public through social media and through their internet services and things like that. So we have to find a little bit of a different mission. Some people were mentioning the animal rescue people, and that's important because they're going to need it. The other, so we need that other capability. And they touched lightly on training. Those of you who've known me, and I've been around probably. I've rounding on the league and was one of the section manager revolt several years ago to get the league to pay attention to bite-sized national standard training. Well, they finally come up with national standards, but they really haven't come up with readily accessible, usable training to go along with the national standards. We as a section adopted standards put up by the National Emergency Response Planning Committee in 2007, but it's been hard to get together the programs. We even sent to the league on the prior emergency manager what would be we hoped the seed of a library of presentations for local Aries training, and nothing's ever happened with that. So I don't know if that's something you, Kristen, and I can talk about offline later, but we need to kind of redefine our mission if we want to be relevant in any form of disaster services communication, whether it be to public agencies, which seem to have a lower need for us because of technology, but deal with other partners. I don't like to use the phrase served agencies. I think partners is a better phraseology to that. And yes, we can't go in telling them this is how you do it. We need to help augment with what skill sets we have. I'm out.
All right, thanks, Bill. Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about that offline as well. Because, yeah, and that was exactly the kind of story I was looking for, is to understand how our relevance is changing. I think that's a really important thing to understand. Let's see, Dan, WL7 COO, you are next.
Okay, well, excuse me. My exposure to emergency management agencies started in the Park Service in 1977, where if you're wearing a uniform, you can be tapped on the shoulder and committed to an emergency response incident. And what I've seen since then is that sometime, maybe approaching 20 years ago, ARRL lost relevance in that world for communications. I don't care to try to fathom the reasons. All we need to do is figure out if and how we can fix it. And the handwriting on the wall that I've seen from looking carefully is that, among other things, well, I don't know if you've been participating in the SEC Aries Zoom presentations that started, I believe, the 1st of March for SECs. But what came out of that crystal clear is that it doesn't matter how good of an amateur you are or what your qualifications are, but if you don't know the people that are working in your local community in response to emergencies, they don't want to hear from you anymore, period. What's changing is that CERT has made phenomenal inroads to where in almost every jurisdiction, there is now a FEMA-funded CERT activity going on. And if we could align ourselves with that in any way to provide extended communications above what the basic CERT folks are going to be using, which is either going to be FRS or GMRS, I think that's a way back into it, but it has to happen locally. And ARRL, I think, has yet to recognize that in a way where they can implement that. Another thing is, I think they made a mistake with the level 3 qualification standards and making the 300 and 400 classes optional for Aries officers. I firmly believe they should both be required, because otherwise you're not going to get to know the locals in your area that are responsible for emergency management. And it just goes on from there. We need to completely refocus what ARRL is targeting with a national amateur radio emergency services program. The fact that things have fallen apart with the Red Cross for the most part, because they no longer believe they need amateurs at every shelter they open, because the disasters had more of a chance of obviating any other means of communication, to where they're just disregarding the existing MOU that's been in place since the last 5 years signing was in 2016. And that too varies all around the country. In some jurisdictions, Aries and Red Cross are intertwined as they are with the local OES office. In others, none of the three are talking to each other. And I spent 18 months in Cal OES basically confirming that as a auxiliary communication service, communication reserve unit. And the valuable skills there weren't really radio as much as they were microwave and IT related aspects, so that we could keep their 2007 technology viable and actually serving in real emergencies. And I'll be happy to talk with you about this offline or in any other forum, but I think we need to steadily move towards an inclusiveness that Aries has never had before, so that we can become part of the community-based stuff that is getting funded by FEMA. Thank you.
All right, thanks very much, Dan. And I see about 5-ish hands up, and I want to hopefully wrap this up around 12:30. So if you can be succinct, I'd appreciate that. Don, NI6A, you're next.
Yeah, thank you, Kristen, and thanks to everybody who is concerned about using amateur radio for the benefit of our community and our country. It's an extra extra like 9 yards to run for some people who are employed and have a family, and this interfaces with recruitment for new hams. What's going to motivate them to become a ham? And then often it's because they want to help the community. Almost, I would say 90% of the new hams in West Contra Costa County are want to use amateur radio for CERT or for disaster communications, but most of them are not necessarily enthusiasts, ham radio enthusiasts. Okay, so as was brought up, maybe this interfaces with the recruitment, is that we want to keep these hams active in disaster communications, MCOM, whatever, and we want to encourage them. Okay, so one way not to encourage them is to charge them extra money to get Aries manuals or get qualified. I'm glad to see that some of the exams and qualifications now do not cost money. You can just do it on the net. I think that's a big improvement. But helping FEMA is in jobs that do not relate to amateur radio, but are we carry the water for them. That's great, but it doesn't really, I think, what do you call, encourage or create enthusiasm for our new ham operators who want to serve their local community with radio communications. So there's a field service or field radio thing that we could emphasize more with the CERTs or the NERTs or in CORE. There's different names for a lot of these community-based CERT-like programs, and so we're extending our group, which is an amateur radio group for Kensington, El Cerrito, to to the CERT groups who want to have communications. If there's an earthquake, we're on the Hayward Fault, right on the Hayward Fault, and is it going to be an earthquake? It's not going to be cell phone. It's not going to be internet. It's not going to be telephones, and we know that. Most of the community that we talk to knows that, and that actually creates, I know it's a fear-based enthusiasm for ham radio, but then a lot of people say, well, how will we communicate? How will we do mutual aid? Not necessarily only to the EOC. Okay, so fortunately we have a good fire department person who understands our needs. He's a ComTech, ComL person, and we have ham radios, dual band antennas, gain antennas in all the fire stations and the EOC and a few other public buildings. Okay, so and we have a good active group. Okay, so it's a question of enthusiasm, as Bill was saying, redefining some of our roles other than just agencies, and the problem with, government agencies, the problem with government agencies is great. If we have enough hams to help them, that's a great thing. But the problem there is they're becoming increasingly security oriented, therefore requiring increasing, certifications, and they're very wary of volunteers, as we know. And I've been working with the fire department since 1980 and Red Cross since 1980, and served on fires with CDF as a VIP person, and Red Cross floods in Santa Cruz County during 81, 82, and the Loma Prieta earthquake, etc. So I kind of know what used to happen, and they've got, a lot of these agencies gotten, dependent upon high-tech solutions, which might or might not work, because it's really never been a big disaster. But I do encourage, I want to say thank you to all the people who've been involved, who are concerned, who can see maybe the linkage of maybe redefining our roles where the community really wants us, because what they want is communication during a big disaster. Fires is a little bit different, or quite a bit different from earthquakes. I would encourage maybe establishing some kind of Pacific Division, emergency communications, Zoom forum or something like that, where we can maybe talk about some of the things in detail, because a lot of my, say, associates don't want to jump through all the ICS trainings and the ARRL trainings because they have family, they want to help, but we can train them. We are training them. We're doing sets, and we're doing which is the best way to train, doing other training locally. Okay, I'll give it back to you, Kristen, and thanks for the opportunity, and I appreciate your volunteer spirit.
Okay, thanks very much, Don. And yeah, we really need to start wrapping things up here. So Dennis, you're next.
Thank you, Kristen. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Dennis, W60Q. I'm the emergency coordinator here in Eastern Kern County. And I want to thank Dan, who made some comments here just a couple before me. Thanks to his work, we are an officially recognized ARES group out here now. We were kind of left in the lurch for many decades as an ARES group, never officially recognized by the league. But we're a small community. We're very isolated. And we've got a community of about 30,000 here in our valley. This is Indian Wells Valley out here in the Eastern Kern. We're separated from the rest of the county by a range of mountains, the Sierra Nevadas. One of the things that I want to, and I've heard a lot of people make this comment, but the way to really bring it across is it's all about building relationships with your community. And for nearly 40 years here in Indian Wells Valley, we have had something called the Emergency Services Committee. And all of the volunteer organizations, the first responders, other city organizations, HAM's have been part of it, CERT has been part of it. This is a group that used to meet monthly prior to COVID. We would meet monthly face-to-face, and it's all about networking. So everybody knows everybody else who's involved in emergency response. We work with the hospitals, we work with the police department, we work with the county sheriff's department, fire department, all of this. This ESC meeting, we're now meeting every 2 weeks. And one of the things that I've taken away from that is that the director of our EOC here in Ridgecrest, here in Indian Wells Valley, recognizes the importance of amateur radio. And he constantly praises us for what we do and how, the fact that we're there and we're part of the community as hams representing the amateur community, and we're there when they need us, and they have needed us. Last year, we had the big earthquakes out here, and the one thing we're thankful for is that communications were pretty robust during the earthquakes, surprisingly. But we've had a series of telephone outages, and I have to make a comment about something that somebody was alluding to earlier, but the AT&T FirstNet, which is supposed to be the robust emergency network, has gone down many times out here when we've had telephone outages. It's a single point failure out here in Indian Wells Valley. Somebody chops into a fiber out here, we lose communications, the EOC loses communications, they lose communications with phones and everything else out here. It's been pretty bad. So amateur radio is the one thing that works when we have that situation. But it really is about building those relationships with, and I want to say served agency. It's not just the served agency, it's the community. It's the people in the community that know you're there and know what you're capable of doing when disaster strikes. And that's why this emergency services community, or I'm sorry, emergency services committee is an important organ here in our community. And I don't think a lot of communities have that type of structure. And I think it's something that more people need to look into. We don't know of anybody else here in the county who's doing anything like this, as far as we know. So we have roughly 30, maybe 30 members that meet face-to-face. We used to meet face-to-face once a month. Now we meet online, but it's a fantastic, fantastic way to get to know your community, get to know who the responders are in your community, and build those relationships. And as a result, when something happens, we get called. And we're thanked for our help. So I appreciate that very much. And I appreciate Dan's effort last year to get us officially recognized after the earthquakes. That was awesome. We do appreciate being part of the larger ARES community. Kristen, thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate
thank you so
getting the
much.
chance to speak.
Sure. Okay, well, I'm just going to take two more. W6ST Barry.
K6ST. So interesting. I'll make it short. Thanks. Coming up 48 years of Hammond, but I want to make the correlation between the conversation in the last 20 or 30 minutes about areas and emergency services and youth. Totally different, totally the same. The issue that we run into is the exact same issue with a slight twist to the emergency thing. And I'll give you an example. When I first got involved up here a few years ago in Reno, I started, doing relationships, which the last gentleman said is exactly right. And everybody says, go to the schools. And for whatever reason, the schools in the county don't want to hear from us at all. So that's like almost going to serve agencies and say, we don't want to hear from you, But here's what I found out. That's not where the fish are biting. The fish are not biting in the schools. The fish are biting for youth in other places like the Boys and Girls Clubs, like the Scouts, like other places. So we just have to find a different place. And that's been very successful here in Nevada. I'm guessing that it's the same kind of thing over in the Aries side. It's not, they have to come to us because they need us. It's like, where are the fish biting? And so this whole concept is very, very similar, not identical, in the youth area as the Aries. So I just want to draw that correlation. I think there's something that's very similar, not identical, that has the same pull, that we have to think different, we have to offer it different. The other thing I want to say is with kids that grow up and they become adults. So if I look at University of Nevada, Reno, I mean, they have a very active ham club. I've been working with them, but they're not there for 4 years. They're there for 2 or 3, or maybe they come in, they leave. So as kids grow up and change, as an example, I think the same thing happens over in other areas and other areas. Things are not static. So the time frame, if we look at kids and youth, is much shorter. And it's the old saying, the guys always say, and I think they're not too far off, you got to get them when they're young, when they've got the fumes, the perfumes and the gasoline fumes, meaning when they've got the excitement. And then if you hook them, you can do it. I think that's similar, a little different in the Aries area, that, the gentleman that said, the relationships, you got to be able to do that and keep it going, because in the case of youth, they're going to grow and they're going to be gone. But if you make the relationships with the organizations, then it's there. Anyway, that's a little diatribe, but I think there's something there. Thank you so much for the great conversation today, Kristen, and good luck on the new appointment.
Thanks, Barry. That's really interesting. Very interesting parallel there. And Matheson.
Hello, Matheson, KJ6DZV. Wow, I have just, it's just a wealth of knowledge and how all of these different, everybody has you guys all have your expertise in CERT, and just like the ARRL apparently pegged, I'm 30 something and get involved in emergency communication, but I'm doing it in a different way. We've been with Arden and microwave communication and against losing the spectrum, but we're here in San Francisco. I'm in Berkeley, but there are so many counties. And part of what I'm seeing is that I'm navigating, and we've got all these counties that are doing it differently, but we're not part of what with microwave with the Arden Mesh Network is that this network is growing beyond a single city, a single county. We're looking at it going regional, and it helps, and it would be good if there were, regional resources, regional standards, and it seems like people are talking about that kind of thing. That kind of networking and developing what can we bring to the ball game for some of these groups. And I think some of them don't understand what, how 20, in 2020, in 2021, how microwave communication and high-speed data communication, because it is a resource to, rural areas who still want, high-speed data, but to be able to bring that in the mix of amateur radio on amateur spectrum, because as, it seems, Dennis, it's like being cut off, have your fiber cut off. How are people, how are communities going to need limited access, but access to the internet in disasters? And I look forward to being able to still, hey, I'm not getting out amateur radio anytime soon. So I look forward to working with some of you guys as far as how we can provide regional microwave communication to Northern California, Southern California, because it's already proven to be a resource in Southern California and in a smaller communities. So 73.
All right, thanks, Mathis. And that was a really important point too. Even just providing infrastructure, digital infrastructure can be a really important service that we can provide that maybe is not so easy for others to provide. Well, it's getting to be a little bit late, and I was gonna just open it up for general Q&A, but I think that would take a lot longer than we have time for. So what I'm gonna do is invite all of you to be able to write to me anytime. I'm really easy to find, k6wx@arrl.org works, and any number of other email addresses. And so if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. And we have a board meeting coming up in January. It's usually about the second, third week. I think the date may already be set. I just don't know it off the top of my head. But if you have ideas and things there that you would like to propose, or things you'd like me to think about bringing up at the board meeting, whatever, please let me know. And I want you to know that, communication is always open here in the Pacific Division. If you have something to say, don't be shy, let me know. And vice versa, if I'm not short on opinions, as many of you know, who know me personally know. But I really appreciate all of you being here. We had over 250 members. I was worried about getting the 500-seat license, but it really paid off. Thank you all for being here, and have a wonderful day and a wonderful Hanukkah and Christmas. Take care, and thanks.
Thanks, Kristen. 7-3.
Thanks, Kristen.
Thank you, Kristen. 7-3.
Thanks.
7-3.
Yeah, thanks, Kristen. These were really good. I think we should do more of these.
Yeah, I do plan to do more.
Yeah, this is really good. Anyway, thanks again, and congratulations, and we'll talk to you soon.
Big success. Thank you. And by the way, I'll be. Thank you. I'm going to be posting the video.
Happy holidays to all.
And I've got the chat transcript. I'm going to be posting the video, and I'm going to keep the chat transcript.
Thank you, Kristen.
All right.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
Hey, mahalo, Kristen.
Yeah, mahalo.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, Kristen, and everyone who participated. This was fantastic. I look forward to the next one. I agree that we should have them more often. This is fantastic.
I echo
7-3.
I echo Dennis.
Maybe once a quarter.
In most cases, everybody stay safe. We got to get through this pandemic.
My wife.
Better 21.
My wife would say,
Yeah.
"Mele kaliki maka, haole makahiki ho."
Oh yeah.
Bye bye. Thanks.
All right. Thank
Thank you,
all.
Kristen. This is great.
Thanks.
We should do this more often. Aloha.
Yeah, maybe
Bye-bye.
once a quarter.
Yep, that'd be good. Aloha. Bye-bye.
Aloha.
Yeah, I say the commute time between here and there is absolutely favorable. So
Yeah, measured in milliseconds.
right, and it's not that many steps to the kitchen when I have to go. So
There you go. There you go.
I've heard it called the Corona commute.
Oh, but this pandemic has given me access to so many ham clubs. I've met so many. I've met them a lot more often than what I normally, going to Pacificon or having to commute 20 miles, 30 miles to a club meeting. You're all right there, and it's happened so often this year.
Well, and it's been great for giving talks too, because I've got a chance to interact with clubs that I would never get a chance to interact with otherwise.
Christian, how bad was the price on the upgrade to 500?
I think, so I decided to just do a month instead of the annual thing. So I think it's like another $50 on top of the $16 monthly thing. So I plan to expense that to the league. But I didn't want to get a whole annual license because I didn't know how much I'd use it, but next time I probably will.
All right, I guess we all have to run off to the 10-meter contest now.
Yeah, exactly. That's your next task, is go play on 10 meters.
Don't really hear a lot out there, though.
Band is
Yeah,
not
not
open?
surprised. It didn't look like the solar flux index was all that high, but you never know.
It could change in a matter of minutes. You never know.
Yeah.
The ARRL didn't open the band? Come on, what's going on?
They lost the key.
Yeah, I know. That's right. All right, I'm going to stop the recording now.